Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. I'm back with a review of a league I played this morning. I played 5 matches, and I'm not going to try to keep you in suspense here. I'm just going to tell you that things went really well. I won. And in fact, I only dropped a single game, and that was to probably the greatest living breakfast player, in my opinion. This guy has so many trophies. He's consistently performed at a deck, even though it's, in my opinion, a little bit badly positioned with Bowmasters everywhere. But yeah, I'd lost a game to him, and everything else I just crushed. So I'm in a jubilant mood, as you can probably pick up. So let's jump over and look at the deck list. This is the same list that I've been rocking. I basically think it's good. I don't really think that there is anything that needs to change. I'm just playing Islands. I'm not playing the Bayou. And that's because I'm playing 3 dazes, and I want to be able to reliably get my Sanctuary online, and I want to be able to reliably cast my Murktides. I love Bayou. I love the idea of Bayou. I don't love the idea of having to wait an extra turn to cast Mystic Sanctuary, or having people waste my blue sources and leave me with a green-black source that doesn't really cast anything on its own. So I still have 3 Lorien revealed. I would love to go up to 4, but I'm not going to go below 19 lands. I think 19 is the bare minimum if you don't want to have to mulligan a lot more. I looked at the hypergeometric calculator, and you have to mulligan quite a bit more frequently if you play 18 lands instead of 19. So these Lorien revealed are nice, but as much as I want a 4th one because it pitches to force, because it's a late game hammer, because it's another way to go find my basic island in case I'm up against Blood Moon. Yeah, this is the mana base. I feel very comfortable with it. I'm not certain about Hedge Maze. After having only played maybe 20 matches with it, it's going to take a little more experimentation, but I do think Hedge Maze is a reasonable decision, even if just having a 4th trop or a 3rd trop is optimal. In terms of cantrips, obviously, I think this goes without saying. Disruption, this feels great. Having 6 removal spells and this Witherbloom command, which you'll see in this league, removes all kinds of problematic permanents. And then this Disruption suite of 6 tempo-based cards and then 4 Force of Wills. I do switch to tempo mode occasionally, and I also occasionally, often board these out completely, especially on the draw. And then this is my threat suite. I consider up the Beanstalk a threat because they basically have to answer it. Otherwise, it just snowballs over the course of the game. Even with just 4 Murktides, 4 Force of Wills, and 2 Murderous Cuts to turn it on, it does get a lot of card advantage over the course of a game. My sideboard is unchanged. Dress Down, I feel really strongly that Dress Down belongs in the sideboard. I like having the Force of Negation mainly for the lands matchup, but it also does come in against pure combo decks where I'm boarding out my removal. Force of Vigor is super strong. I'm not sure if we're going to see it today, but in some matches I played yesterday, it definitely came in handy. And then the 2 Nile Spellbomb, 1 Surgical Extraction split for Graveyard Hate. I'm not sure about Force of Despair. I didn't even board it in this league, and I haven't really been boarding it in. So this probably could come out, and if we retooled the mana base and the fetches, this could be a basic swamp. A lot of people play a basic swamp so that they can cast their removal spells and Bowmasters under Blood Moon, and it's just another base you can go get. So I would definitely say that if this goes, it'll probably be a basic swamp, and that means I'll probably update my fetching strategy to going back to just having a lot of polluted deltas, 4 polluted deltas, and then mixed blue fetches. I don't want to go back to having a Bayou, though. I genuinely don't think that that's right. So enough of a deck tech. You've probably seen this in action before, but you're about to see it just crush the field, and including starting with 2 scam matchups. Now, let's jump over to the replays. I want to give a shout out to somebody who left a comment. I apologize, I don't have the username right in front of me, but they pointed out that you can actually view the sideboard during the replays, and so I can talk about my sideboard decisions as I actually did them instead of talking hypothetically. So we're going to be able to do that this time. So we're going to start with this match against Snowies. And again, Mono Black Scam. If you come over here and you type in, let's see if I can find them in here. Yeah. Maverick. So this is round 1, you do get players who haven't played a lot recently. This is from, 6 months ago, and Maverick, not exactly a top deck. So I was just well, they could be on anything. Let's see what I get. I'm on the draw. So I got a strong hand. Like, I consider this to be a really strong hand. Double Bowmaster is very good in the field. It's not going to be very strong in this matchup, unfortunately, but in general, I would pretty much always keep this unless I knew I was against like Doomsday or something like that. All right. So, or some other like kind of somewhat glass cannon-y deck. Okay, so there I saw that I had a Force, which I always like to tuck Force in my hand whenever I can, and I also had a Up the Beanstalk on top of my deck. So here's the Beanstalk. They're not representing days, so I'm just going to jam. Interesting. I didn't jam. I guess I didn't jam because I thought they might be playing Bowmasters. They did leave Bowmasters mana up. So they're going to Bowmaster me. Again, I've got 2 Bowmasters in my hand. It's not that big a deal at this point. Gix, I did think about whether I should force him because he attacks, he pays life, he draws 2 cards, boom, I blow him out with the Orcish Bowmasters. That looked really strong. But at the same time, like, that's kind of a cute play. And what if something goes wrong? What if my Bowmasters gets removed? I don't know what could have happened, but I just felt safe at this point. Like, okay, this is a pure creature matchup. We're probably not going to see any sort of weird, beseech the mirror or anything like that. So I'm just going to stop this legitimate threat on the table. And yeah, that's what I did. You could make an argument for just Bowmastering there when they had the draw triggers, killing their Bowmaster, potentially killing their Orc army, or potentially, even putting a damage on Gix and then killing Gix and leaving the Bowmaster in play, and then going up the Beanstalk next turn into Force, which would have yielded an extra card. And that is probably the card efficient way, even though they would have drawn 2 cards from that exchange. But, I felt like it was fine to go ahead and fire off the Force here. It's a good tempo play. We're getting, essentially, they spent 3 mana, we're spending 0. So Force of Will is, in addition to everything else, like a great tempo card. All right, and here, we're just going to go ahead and remove it. I don't suspect they have any game plan. I always take care of the token when I'm against aggro decks, just because I'm going to be able to produce another token. It can represent a chump blocker later. Having the extra, power on the board isn't really that important in this matchup. He hasn't played out an Ancient Tomb or anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my attack in. And, another Bowmasters. Well, luckily, I came prepared with my own Bowmasters. So nothing to Spell Pierce there. That's why I was leaving that man up. Now I'm just going to Bowmaster his Bowmasters. And you could definitely argue that I could have done that at instant speed, but I did want to be able to ponder here. Daze is terrible. Shieldred's Edict is redundant, so I think this is a shuffle. I might have taken the Tarn just so I could shuffle off Tarn, and it looks like I did, because I do want to have lots of mana in this matchup. So the way I'm anticipating winning is resolving a big Murktide. Here, he Wastelands me. You'll note that I've had this Wasteland in play, and I'm not using it. I don't think I even use it in this matchup at all, because these lands are really just there for the ETB filtering effect through Surveil. I've been very diligent with my Wastelands and just don't even use them in certain matchups. Just use them as a waste. A waste that does ultimately get wastelanded, but usually they're not going to wasteland your wasteland if you got any other lands out. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna. Did I keep that on top? Yeah, I kept a Misty Rainforest on top because hey, it's a land, and that's one of the reasons I kind of want to get rid of this and go back to Trop is because, like, it feels like 75% of the time I just end up keeping the card anyway. It has to be a really bad card for me to just pitch it, because I mean this, like, we're building toward a Mystic Sanctuary, and Mystic Sanctuary is a card. Here, I'm gonna tuck this back over here. That is strong enough to be banned in Modern. I mean, it's a really good card, and I want to get it online. I feel like a lot of people take Mystic Sanctuary for granted, but it's really strong, especially in a deck where you're playing cards like Lorien Revealed. So here, I get rid of some lands. Wait, do I undo this? I should have gotten rid of both Bowmasters instead of getting rid of that land. That was a misplay. Now, he has his own Orcish Bowmasters, so it's not a big deal, but it's just like a little, thing. Like, I need to tighten up, right? Okay, Shieldred's Edict, no big deal. We got our card out of it, so it's a 2-for-1. Attacking in with this because I'm not planning to block. I'm going to save this and hopefully block something bigger. But at some point, I am going to throw Mr. Orc Army under the bus. Okay, so there we drew a lot of card. We drew a card, and this represents 5 cards. or 4 cards with our current Beanstalk configuration. He has another, and I'm happy to do that. I can do that all day. He's hellbent. I'm going to reload next turn with Lorien Revealed. And note that like not using these wastelands is absolutely instrumental. I might have lost if I had cracked off those wastelands. Now, the flip side of this is he's going to be able to... so what did I put on top real quick? I just want to check the log. I think I put... okay, so now I put Lorien Revealed on top. So I do have to wait a turn. And I think I cycled Lorien Revealed when he wasted me. So that's the great thing about Lorien Revealed is like, okay, they waste you. Like you just take an extra turn, you go get Mystic Sanctuary, and you plan to Lorien Revealed the subsequent turn. So I mean, Lorien Revealed and Mystic Sanctuary, BFF, best friends forever. All right. So I am jumping here just because my life is getting low, and I'm grateful that I did because now he's got a grief. Hard cast. Now, note if I had wasted, I could have kept him off that, but you know, it's a 4-outer. Really, like the only cards you care about them having mana for are waste and like extremely late in the game, maybe Troll of Khazad-dûm. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead. Lorien Revealed while he's tapped out. I don't have to worry about getting killed by a Bowmaster here. I draw a bunch of cards. Unfortunately, I can't really cast any of them except for this Orcish Bowmasters. Like, I do think it's worth just holding the Bowmasters, and my plan is to either kill this or to double block here. And I do think at this point it's worth double blocking. Orcish Bowmasters represents removal and a chump blocker. That's really all it is in this matchup. They're not drawing cards. I guess unless they get Gix online. So he Thoughtseizes, and this gives me a great opportunity to ping him and see, do you still want to attack me with your Orc army, knowing that it's going to die? And I think he decides to take the trade there. He goes and gets another land, which I'm happy about because like his deck just can't make good use of excess lands like mine can. So I keep this around, and my hope is that I can somehow double block next turn, depending on what I draw. I don't need to. I drew a Murderous Cut, which is an insane rip here because I'm going to cantrip on it as well. So I tap and retap my mana. You can hit, Control Z, or I just have Z bound here so that I can undo it. And it may seem like a little optimization. I've got plenty of clock. I don't want to screw up and like lose the game because I delved the wrong cards away. All right, and I had lots of sorceries and instants, so this Murktide is going to be giant. I ripped another Murderous Cut, so the game's over. Like, he doesn't even know that I have a Brainstorm and a Murderous Cut in my hand, but I have Lethal Pressure on board. Game 2. Okay, and I will show my sideboard here. Okay, so let's take a look at my sideboard. And spoiler alert, the next match I play is also against Mono Black Scam. I took out some tempo cards, but I took out the Fatal Pushes, and my thinking is they don't really have anything that's like Fatal Pushable. But in fact, they do. They have Douthie. Sometimes you do want to just burn a Fatal Push, even though it doesn't feel good on a Orcish Bowmasters. You can get Revolt, and you can take out a Grief. Like, Fatal Push is not dead at all in this matchup. So, in retrospect, I should have gone ahead and taken out probably the Stifles and kept the pushes in. And Force of Despair might have even been worth bringing in here. I don't think these are worth bringing in because they usually don't have that many threats on the table, and they're not playing very many Hateful Permanents or anything I need to worry about. And another thing is I never board in Surgical Extraction against regular Scam. I only bring it in against Rescam, and it may not even be correct to bring it in. Like, if I don't think they're going to have the 4 Animate Deads in, I won't even bring in Surgical Extraction because it is a terrible top deck. And a lot of people are much higher on Surgical Extraction, and they board it in and use it much more aggressively than me. But for me, it's just a 0-for-1. It's a feel bad card unless you're in like a very specific situation where it can be a 1-for-1, like say somebody's reanimating a troll. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started with this one. I'm going to flip my fan on so I can be nice and chill here in my hot house. All right, so Nile Spellbomb, great opening play in my opinion because it does shut the door on reanimation effects. You have to be careful because sometimes with one of these out, they'll just reanimate one of your creatures. I made the mistake the other day of seeing reanimate, and I was like, okay, I'll just Nile Spellbomb. They're just 1-for-1ing me. And then I realized, oh no, they're reanimating my Orcish Bowmasters, not their own. And it was too late. Like, they got on the Orcish Bowmasters, and I nuked their graveyard for no immediate benefit. It may have had long-term benefit, but okay, Wasteland. So, I'm not too proud to just open Island. Like, it sucks Open Island. Here's what. So this is like a big unlock for me. Is like you don't want to mulligan generally against Scam unless you really have to, unless your hand's really non-functional, because they can just rip your hand to shreds. And you want. It's better to be left with 5 mediocre cards than like 3 good cards usually, right? After they and the math on this is they will be able to grief reanimate usually like 40% of the time. Or I'm sorry, it's like 18% of the time they'll have both grief and reanimate and a black card to pitch in their opening hand and a swamp. But that number climbs pretty quickly as the game goes on and they keep drawing cards. So you can pretty much, it's pretty inevitable that you're going to get griefed in this matchup. So just let it happen. Don't get jumpy with your forces. Yeah, another one. I just let it happen. They take my, what did they took my, my Murktide this time, which is fine. I mean, the most important thing in this matchup is removal. And I just drew yet another removal spell, but I can't really profitably play out my Underground Sea. I do want to wait here, which, again, is cowardly, but like I'm going to draw good cards eventually. They're going to take my 1 mana removal. So Bowmasters, I'm surprised they haven't taken it yet. I do have an opportunity to do this, and I think I'm just going to... Do I put back the forces at this point? I mean, those are pretty bad. Let's see what I put back here. Okay, so I put back one of my removal spells. I think in retrospect, I should have put back the 2 forces. Because, I mean, really, like, this is going to be a 2-for-1 regardless of what happens. And what are the scariest cards they could play at this point? You know, really. Like, Dalthy's pretty scary, but, like, I would have had that covered if I had the... So, again, even though I won this game by a pretty wide margin, if I recall correctly, I can still tighten up, right? And, like, that's a situation where, okay, I could have just totally used the, what is it called? Murderous Cut on that. And it would have been a 1-for-1 instead of a 1-for-2, right? Okay, so here I'm going to get my other land, and I can go ahead and do this. And a lot of times I won't even get a wasteland in this matchup. I'll just get, like, if I have an Underground Sea or something like that, I'll get that because I actually only have 3 green sources and 3 black sources in my entire deck. So sometimes it does make sense to get the actual dual land instead of trying to maintain forward momentum with a fetch. But in this case, all my lands were fetches, so there wasn't a decision to be made there. Notably tapping out of being able to use Nile Spellbomb, so he can 1-for-1 me if he has like a reanimate he wants to fire off here. All right, and I'm feeling really strong now because I've got my mana under me. I have Nile Spellbomb to stop the most powerful card in his deck, which is Reanimate. There is the possibility he could play Troll here. He does have Troll mana, but I'm not going to sweat it. I'm not going to start firing off Wastelands. So I think the play here is to ponder, and then if he responds with Bowmasters, I can just Bowmasters his Bowmasters. And yeah, he doesn't respond. I get a Murktide. I'm going to slam this Murktide. And he has lots of ways of dealing with this. I think he's got like Brazen Borrowers. Yeah, but he doesn't draw one of them, and he just concedes. So yeah, again, I think even though he was able to Thoughtseize me twice and grief me, like I just played disciplined. I do think it was a punt a little bit to keep the forces when I could have kept the removal spell, but overall, pretty happy with that match. Again, like I think this is definitely a softer matchup than like Rescaminator or the blue-black. I think mono-black Scam is weaker. That is my personal opinion, having played against both the decks quite a bit and having played, as a Scam deck for a few months there when it really first came out. This hand is not really keepable, but where there's Ponder, there's Hope, and it does have Force of Will, so I don't know what they're on. Let's go check here in... so I'm going to come in here, and unfortunately, I have to retype it because... so it's Chase Hope. Okay, and I always look these up. There's no shame in doing this. I think this is the way forward. So not a super heavy legacy player. In fact, you could say I kind of got lucky, like playing against somebody who mostly plays vintage. Like no recent results other than this 5-0 with Dimir Scam. So I'm like, oh, they're probably on Dimir Scam. So this would be their list if they were on Dimir Scam. Let's see whether they are in fact on that. They're on some form of Scam. I can't remember. Yep, they're on Dimir Scam. Blue-black Scam, for anybody that doesn't know the specific words for the different color combinations. Okay, so here, we've got no choice. I've got to go ahead and Ponder and Hope. And here, Hedge Maze is a terrible land to draw And this is, again, if this were a trop, I'd be doing great. Oh my goodness. I'm going to Beanstalk. I'm going to, I've got force if they have days. Like I could just keep pushing forward with my plan. But unfortunately, it's a hedge maze and I just have to chill. So yeah, I don't even put the hedge maze in hand because if they scam, I want them to prioritize wastelanding me because I'd rather just, pitch Murktides that are not going to be relevant for several turns than and gradually draw some lands, So I do know that I need to put whatever is on top of my deck. I think it's a Bowmasters. I have to put that in the graveyard because I am looking for lands. I mean, it's the best card in the matchup, but if we get wasted out of the game, that's how we lose, right? So here we go with the Beanstalk. Is this going to resolve? No, not surprising. What is surprising is that I find out my opponent is playing not one, but two of the Surveil leads. I think that's a mistake. I think one is the maximum you should play probably, unless you're playing like a Yorion deck. Okay, so Brazen Borrower coming in, hard cast. I'm happy to see that because that means it's not going to affect my Murktide later, and I have plenty of removal. And if I find a Bowmasters cleanly kills Brazen Borrower. One of the reasons I'm not playing Brazen Borrower again is I just got sick of, bouncing something, casting the Brazen Borrower only to get it pinged out of the sky with a lock piece, no less, right? It's one thing when somebody Bowmasters your Bowmasters, but when somebody Bowmasters your X1, it feels really bad. So finally, I've got mana here, and I drew one of my two non-ETB tapped lands, which is, I was very happy to draw that land, and now I can attempt to go up the Beanstalk again, and yeah, I think that's the right play here. We don't have to worry about Bowmasters coming in. They do force. I do think it's worth forcing back. I force pitching Brainstorm because this not only triggers Beanstalk, but it blocks the Murktide. And we're not quite to the point where we're going to be able to cast Murktide. So I do think just going ahead and cutting, even though it costs us a lot of graveyard. And you'll note that did they force here? They probably, yeah, they could have days in hand. I'm a little, I got blown out by days. If you saw my last video, I got blown out by a one of days that destroyed the game basically for me that I should have easily won. So days, maybe it's just maybe I'm just have it top of mind. But yeah, I decided to go ahead and not take a chance and to go ahead and eat my entire graveyard for that. So a lot of times in the past, I would have just been like, that's cool. I'll just take 7. I'll be fine. But you can't play around with your life total against these very aggressive creature matchups. They can punish you very quickly and win very quickly if you don't pay due respect to their attackers. All right, Brainstorm. And here I feel great because I can hardcast days. Yeah, and I think that was a misplay on their part because they could have played more patiently and just casted the next turn. What they're trying to do is it may not be a misplay because look at my board. They know that this game is going in my favor if it keeps going, right? So there, I didn't shuffle. I think I saw a Wasteland on top, which is not super relevant. I'm just going to draw a card here. And again, respect days. Wasteland, Witherbloom Command, which is pretty dead in this matchup. It probably should come out because I'm not wasting my opponent generally. So there's not a lot to recur. Okay, they Bowmastered my Bowmaster. The play pattern. All right, but I'm not that worried about it. Okay, now I am a little worried about it. And now I'm very glad that I proactively preserved my life total because they've got a lot of pressure on between these. Okay, so I am able to gain some life. Did I gain life? What modes did I choose? Yeah, I killed his creature and I milled. So I rarely gain life because 2 life is rarely of consequence, and we don't really care about their life total at all. We care about getting a Murktide in play and just winning the game. All right, so we're going to make a pretty beefy dragon here, draw 2 cards, including another of the Beanstalk. And even though this is a small dragon, it's going to grow because we have lots of food for it. Like this Lorien Revealed is a good card for it. We're going to let it resolve, and I think they just see my hand and they scoop because frankly, they're not beating this. I can draw a ton of cards. They've got 1 card in hand. They don't have a lot of pressure. Once I have a second Murktide, I can just hold it back for a turn and they can't even attack with grief. So I can just hold it back with double Murktide, block his menace creature if he attacks, and just continue to accrue advantage. So this is like, who's the beatdown? They are definitely the beatdown, and I'm the control player in this particular situation, and probably in this entire matchup. All right, let's go to game 2. All right, so let's take a look at my sideboard. I think this time I decided to go ahead and board out all my tempo cards. So there's the 2 Spell Pierces, the Stifles, the 1 Spell Pierce, the 3 Dazes, and I boarded in all of my black creature removal. And I also boarded in Carpet of Flowers, and I boarded in Force of Despair, or I should maybe have boarded in Force of Despair, but it felt so marginal. And this is why I'm kind of thinking about taking it out of my sideboard, is because like literally the only matchup I ever put it in is when I'm playing against goblins. And do you really want a card for a matchup where you're already like seriously unfavored? I think maybe we just hope to get lucky against that matchup and we don't dedicate a precious sideboard slot to it. So definitely thinking about what card to replace that with. As I said earlier, maybe the Swamp. Okay. Strong hand. We've got Nile Spellbomb, which shuts off the reanimation card, which, again, I genuinely believe is the most powerful card in Scam, is Reanimate. They do have Scam. And, they took basically all my relevant cards. But I do have lands here, and they do attack on that mana vector. They probably have 3 or 4 Dazes in their deck. They probably have all 4. We could just look here. They play all 4 Wasteland. They play 3 Dazes, which, again, I don't think is correct to play 4 Dazes unless you're like straight up Delver, where every threat is like 1 mana. But yeah, like they definitely benefit from me stumbling and taking a long time. And we don't have to worry about that here because we've got lots of land in hand. I'd rather have a mono land hand than a mono spell hand with no lands, right? Okay, so they take... wait, what happened? Why did I put Wasteland in my graveyard? Oh, because of Hedge Maze. Sorry, I just lost track of what was going on there. Okay, so Voidwalker, this is like a kill on sight. Like this is a force on sight card, in my opinion. I put Voidwalker, I put Goblin, most of the 3-drop goblins, like especially Broadside Bombardiers, and then I would definitely force on sight a Goblin Engineer. Because it just unlocks a lot of value in Painter. But there are a few cards that I'm just like, I don't even think about it. I force it. And Douthie is one of those cards. Because it's kind of a pain to kill with Orcish Bowmasters. Unless I just had like a Fatal Push in hand or something, I wouldn't risk it with letting Douthie come into play. Because one of the things that's really insidious about Douthie is you force one of their effects and suddenly they have like a tap to force you, your best removal spell type card. So Douthie, you definitely have to respect. And you have to respect the fact that it's a clock, right? I just went to 11. This is my turn 3, right? And I'm at 11. So out of respect for Douthie, I do think I definitely thought about playing out a land and just taking a turn off to go up the Beanstalk, but you can't mess around. Like I'm 2 turns from death. I have to Murderous Cut this. So I do that. I Murderous Cut. I purge my entire graveyard. I'll be able to, convert this in, and this is Daze Protection, but I want this in my yard. I don't want this in the void. So there we go. Bowmasters comes down. I mean, look at all this pressure. If I'd taken a turn off to Beanstalk, I would be dead here. That would definitely be a game. All right, they're coming in. So next turn, I'm going to... Okay, and they have pressure on my mana too. So this turn, I'm going to wait and see what they do. They're attacking in, and I can... And at this point, like, I do think it's worth double blocking Grief because I'm so low in life. And then I just have to figure out how to not die for the next 4 turns. Yeah, Beanstalk. And note that if they did have a Bowmasters there, I just die. Like there's nothing I can really do. I can't wait around. So I'm going Pedal to the Metal. I'm getting a land here, dropping to 2 life. But my own Bowmasters to answer his token. And the fact that I have Beanstalk up, there are some, like obviously if he draws his own Bowmasters, that would be strong. But, I think he's already seen my hand, so he knows I still have that Murktide in hand. So he's like, yeah, he's going to Murktide. He's going to draw a bunch of cards. He's going to have this threat that I can't easily deal with. And I'm shutting off I'm penalizing his cantrips. So yeah, that was a pretty clean 2-0 here. And now we're jumping into probably the most exciting match of the league. This is against Larson, who is probably like I said, like probably the most famous cephalid breakfast player, at least on MTGO. Like he is, a ride or die. Let's pull him up. So I'm gonna go. It'd be nice if it would autocomplete, since I have most certainly searched this like 50 times to see like his most recent. So you can see like cephalid breakfast. He did play some Death and Taxes for a while, but like these are all in the past month, right? He's got like 6 trophies or something in the past month with cephalid breakfast. Legacy Showcase qualifier 13th, not bad. And then a lot more 5-0s, and we can go all the way back here. Let's see if we can figure out when he started playing breakfast. So that's when breakfast got really popular, right after White Plume Adventure was popular, before it got banned. So we can see he's been playing breakfast really since then. I think this is his first attempt to play breakfast where he's done well, and that is more than a year ago. So he's been playing breakfast like solidly for a year. So I've played against him probably at least 4 times. And this is the first time that I actually beat him. And so since we have played each other a lot, I say some kind words to him at the beginning. I do have a profound amount of respect for him. And I hope to get better at playing against breakfast by playing against him. So it's great to play against him. Here I've got like a hand that has just tons of wastelands. And thinking back to this game, this is a painful game because you're going to see what happens. I do make a gameplay error that cost me this game. And it's a very small one. So here I've got 2 days. Okay, so Lorien revealed. I'm just going to try to keep the mana flowing. Mana does become an issue in this matchup. Now I've got Beanstalk. That's great. Because like they are really going for like one big turn. And this gets me really spooked. Of course, he names, what does he name? Bowmasters, I think. Because that makes sense for me to have Bowmasters. I'm obviously like a Bowmaster deck. But what he sees when he does it is he sees 3 dazes. So if he gets any creature into play, he can flash this back and just strip all 3 of those dazes, 3 for 0 effectively, because he's basically already gotten, well, I mean, actually 3 for 1 because he didn't get anything the first time through. Okay, so he's brainstorming. He's probably desperately trying to find some sort of creature that he can sack so he can get that 3 for 1. I'm going to go ahead and go up the Beanstalk here, I think. That makes sense. You'll note that I am not wasting him because, again, mana is precious, and as long as he's making land drops every turn, I don't want to waste him. Okay, in there, I did decide to waste him. He had a non-basic in play. I know that his deck plays 2 islands and 1 plains, and he can't even get that basic plains with this, so I do want to constrict his mana a little bit. But, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to cast this Merc that's probably going to get countered. And miraculously, it doesn't get countered. And so I'm in a pretty strong position here. And how does Be Excellent screw this up? Well, Staff of the Storyteller unfortunately does create a token. So I'm incentivized to go ahead and force this. And I pitch one of my dazes just to mitigate the downside risk of him flashing back. So this would be like a 4-for-1 basically, because he'd get the token. He'd be able to flash back. Then he'd be able to draw a card, and then he'd have this in play to buff his Saga token constructs. It's bad news. And this card is a card that not a lot of people are playing, and he usually plays with 4 or 3, I think, Stoneforge Mystics and Cauldra. But instead, he's changing it up, and he's playing this, and he's also playing Retrothopter Foundry, which those 2 cards have really good synergy, and this becomes an engine. Not super popular since Bowmasters was printed, but it is something that you have to respect and you have to be prepared to face. I definitely take this card seriously. Okay, I get another blue card, which is great. Hopefully I can get, I could go cycle, and I could go get a, I do have 3 islands, so I could go get a Mystic Sanctuary, and I could put Force of Will back on top of my deck. Cantripping Force of Will is definitely, it's definitely good if you can get it, right? And here, I made a mistake. So I was brainstorming, I think, and I decided to put back one of my dazes. I could have put back any of my cards, right? I could have put back the second Murktide. I could have put back this Brainstorm, but I decided to put back a daze, and you'll see how this bites me later. So I'm going to cast the Murktide. So I still have 2 interaction spells up, and I just drew a Bowmasters, which is a hammer in this matchup. But look at this. Shuko. Okay, that's cool. I've got 2 points of interaction. Cephalid Illusionist. Well, that sucks because now I have to force, and he's still got that untapped Tundra. So he has his own force. So if I had double days here, I could have stopped this, basically, instead of having this Brainstorm that I can't cast. You could definitely argue that it was a mistake to play the second Murktide region. I wanted to get him dead on board. My thinking was, let's close out the game because the longer this goes. But I should have kept the second days. I took for granted that, and then, I basically make sure he has it. Sometimes you want to actually make them do it because sometimes they may have, a card like, they may have their Thassa's Oracle in hand, for example, or the Dread Return or something like that. And, but unfortunately, yeah, the game's over. Okay, let's go into, and we'll look at how I sideboarded for game 2. These are long games, by the way, because I'm very careful when I'm up against a deck that can, kill you instantly like that. I mean, he went from dead on board to winning through force of will, through days, right? Like that. That's a powerful deck. And he only had 4 lands in play too. I had restricted his mana a little bit. All right, so let's take a look here. This is a great opening hand. It doesn't have a force of will, but keep in mind he's like a at fastest turn 2 deck, and I do have ways to potentially sift through and find if I need to. Sideboard. We've got, I kept in, I think, some of my tempo cards. I took out Spell Pierce, which is too slow. You don't really care about stopping their, I mean, you could argue that it's good against like Teferi and Ormschant, which are the 2 of the scariest cards that they play. But I don't think that it's worth keeping Spell Pierce in, just because your main thing is you want to be able to daze. So I almost always, I think, keep all 3 dazes in. I may board 1 daze out, maybe 2. We'll see what I do here. But Force Negation, again, because you're worried about creature spells. You're worried about Nomad's Encore. You're worried about Cephalid Illusionist. You're less worried about, but I mean, since he's playing Staff of the Storyteller, you could definitely argue that you could take out a daze and you could move this in. And I think that's what I do for game 3. I also took out a Beanstalk. Beanstalk's really strong, but you have to tap out of all your protection in order to cast it. And we saw last game when I tapped out of all my protection, like my Brainstorms and everything, and I relied on zero mana interaction. I didn't have a way to stop it. Now, what I brought in, I brought in Surgical. I did bring in the 2 Nile Spell Bombs, which you can just basically park on the table, and then you don't have to worry about them winning unless they play Thassa's Oracle from hand, which they can do. Don't ever forget that they can do that. All right, so strong keep, lots of land. I'm going to be able to execute my game plan here. Keep Stifle up. Meticulous Archive. I'm very happy to see this because I need time. My deck does actually do better over the long term. I am very much the control deck in this matchup. We go ahead and tap out of interaction just because he needs more than 2 mana. Although I don't think in this list he's playing a Lotus Petal, but in some lists he does play a single Lotus Petal. So you do have to kind of keep that in mind that they can kind of go off turn 2. So he plays Staff. I don't have any interaction for it. I just have to let it happen. All right. I Brainstorm there. Sorry, I clicked through really quickly. But basically, I just put back some dead cards, and now I've got like a solid blue hand with a Murderous Cut if I need it. Now, I don't have the ability to cast Murderous Cut right now, but I will soon if I really need to. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go ahead and ponder with this floating blue, and I see an incredible card, Orcish Bowmasters, that's going to disrupt his engine. So what I do, I think I don't care about these cards. I'm just going to put them on, and then I'm going to shuffle with Misty Rainforest. That's what I should do. Do I remember to do that? All right. So here we go, coming in. So if I'm smart, I'll go ahead and, okay, I stifled there, so I did fetch. And just stifling fetches is randomly good because, again, like they need a critical mass of mana to be able to have an Ormschant turn or to get to Fairy on the table. Retrofitter combos with this. Every turn he can pay 2 mana, create a token, and then he can activate this. All right. So I didn't draw a land. I do have Lorient Reveal, which I can go ahead and cycle and get a land because I do want to make a land drop every turn for forward momentum. And I'm just going to hold. And this, I think, yeah, I just let it hit me. I don't care about 1 damage. End step, I am going to go ahead and use one of them to take this out. So notable that he only had 2 mana because I stifled him. He couldn't make a counter and then draw with the Bowmasters on the stack. So not only did I deny him a mana, I've already denied him a card. Lorien Revealed is a very good card here. Okay, so he's going to play this out, and I'm just going to poke it with my other Bowmasters, and I'm actually going to deal even more damage now. I'm going to do an extra damage with that. So, yeah, he does have a charge counter on there, but he'd be crazy to activate with 2 Bowmasters on the table. His deck doesn't play a lot of removal either. So I've got 2 of the best cards you can possibly have against him. I just drew Insurance against his combo plan, and I just need to focus on beating him the fair way, or beating his fair plan, which is not hard. Frankly, it's like a pretty mediocre fair plan. Okay, so he's creating tokens. Again, these can stop me from being able to attack in. I'm going to go ahead and waste him off the land. And because I stifled and because I wasted... Did I just waste once or did I waste twice? Yeah, I just wasted once, but even knocking off 2 lands has been really powerful. He's on 1 land, and he scoops. Overwhelming pressure. Game 3 is a nail biter. Are you ready? All right, let's do it. Let's take a look at my sideboard again. So here, I did take out some daisies and I did move in the Force of Negation. Yeah, I think that's the only notable change I made. I don't think Carpet belongs in this matchup. They have a lot of non-blue things, and you need the mana available on their turn, not your turn, if that makes sense. Like, it just feels like a dead card in a lot of matches, so I don't bring it in. And I did bring out one of my Murktides. I don't think you need all 4 Murktides because you really just need to stop them and then close the game, however. But I like to keep 3 Murktides in because there was a game that I played against him where he ran me out of time. It was a very long game, and I just didn't, because he was able to like plow both my Murktides, my only path forward was killing him with Orcish Bowmasters, and it was just taking too long, and every turn he'd have some other random like Narcomoeba or something that I'd have to get rid of to be able to attack him. And yeah, I'm working on playing faster. You can see, I think you'll see the clock here in a second when I advance to the next step. I've got 14 minutes, so I've been playing pretty fast. He plays very fast. He's much more experienced than I am. Certainly more experienced with his deck. So here, this is a great hand. We've got Murderous Cut that can come online after a few turns, and we've got Lorien Revealed to get our second land. And again, he starts with Meticulous Archive, which is like probably the least scary opening possible. Staff, I don't have a daze. I would definitely daze that if the opportunity were there. And I get a land, and I'm just going to go ahead and Beanstalk. Now, you can see my hand is crazy good because I've got double blue, and then I've got this. It's going to trigger Beanstalk, so I'm probably going to pitch these cantrips and try to resolve a Murktide so that I can go with the Beanstalk here. So he has a Brainstorm of his own, which he can do safely around Bowmasters. Swings in, I take it. I'm going to go ahead and get land number 3. He should know by now that I probably have Orcish Bowmasters in my hand. And yeah, he's going to attack in. I'm just going to take it. And he's going to play Teferi. I don't like Teferi. Teferi is bad news bears. Now, I could get cute and I could I could Orcish Bowmasters and let it resolve. But with this hand, I think it would be a huge mistake to let Teferi resolve. So, especially with cantripping forces. So I pitched the Brainstorm, drew another Murderous Cut. Not the best card right here. Not terrible. And I'm going to basically use this as like kind of a time walk effect just to buy myself some extra time to set up. So here I drew another Murktide Regent, which is good because I can pitch one of the Murktide Regents, and that enables me to ponder while still having a Murktide Regent up. That was now Spellbomb. I think it was like an island or something, and then it was an Up the Beanstalk. And getting an Up the Beanstalk is pretty appealing here. Yeah, it was Mystic Sanctuary. So Mystic Sanctuary can get back Force, and I think that's what I do here. Now, I don't immediately have Force of Will online, but you can see that like I basically have double Force effect here if I need it. So Urza Saga is ticking up. That's probably the scariest card in his deck, other than like the combo. But this does get the Shuko itself. So this represents both the combo and it represents aggressive pressure, especially since he has this extra artifact. Cephalid Breakfast doesn't play a lot of artifacts, so like just having Staff on the table does significantly boost your Urza Saga plan. Okay, so I just cast Murderous Cut on one of his constructs here, so he can't attack me. Oh wait, I cast it on the spirit. Okay, interesting. I think I just wanted to draw a card. This was end step. Maintain forward momentum. Now spell bomb. Now I don't need to worry about the combo plan. I mean, he could Teferi and bounce it and then go off. That's definitely a risk. So I'm not completely out of the woods on the combo front, but what I'm really worried about is he's about to create another construct token. Keep in mind he's got 7 lands in hand. Okay, so things happen very fast. Orm's Chant. You'd never let Orm's Chant resolve. Never. Yes, he could be baiting me, but I don't take that chance. So what he does is he responds by creating a construct token. So he's going to get a token on this, and he can draw a card and potentially find a force of his own. And let's see if he does that. So force, is he going to respond? No, he just lets my force resolve. Now he can search. He's probably going to go get the Thopter Foundry or Shuko. Okay, he wouldn't get Shuko because I've already got this out. Thopter Foundry is scary. These not only boost the token engine, the staff engine, but they also make these constructs larger. And then he plays a second. And so far this game I've seen 0 Wastelands. So these are scary. Wasteland, one of the reasons so many control decks play Wasteland right now is precisely because you can control your opponent very well with the stack, and then they just play these Urza Sagas that you can't interact with counter spells. And you can't favorably interact with 1-for-1 removal. Like that was technically with the Up the Beanstalk, that was kind of like a 1-for-1, but keep in mind he gets 2 construct tokens for each Urza Saga. All right, so I'm still alive. Daze is not like the greatest draw, but it does pair with force. Draw a card. I think Bowmasters, I go ahead and play this out just to kill the servo because next turn he can untap, he can make more tokens. It's not the end of the world to just kind of fire this off main phase. And again, with now Spellbomb, I'm not worried about his plan B. I'm worried about just not dying to constructs. So I've got double force up. I don't have Murktide ready yet. I need more cards in my graveyard. So he goes ahead and he just feeds my Orc army. And here I'm just going to have to take it, and I know he's going to buff it. I'm not going to throw 3 things in front of this. That would be foolhardy. Yeah, and he makes another one. So I'm taking 5, and look, he's got a pretty substantial board presence here. So I fetch. Let's see what I get here. Ponder. I just throw that in the graveyard. It's a great card, but like I don't want to be using my mana to ponder. I can feed Murktide with that ponder, and I can hopefully draw something really strong. Like, that's not really strong, but it's not bad. Okay, so here, I'm just going to go ahead and Murktide. Just trying to draw 2 cards off Beanstalk. Even if he has interaction for this Murktide, it's going to be favorable for me with these Beanstalks. And I'm going to Brainstorm here. This is the best card I could have possibly drawn. I have the right mana to cast it. And importantly, if I were to drew Pernicious Deed, that would definitely be good too. But I'm at 9 life. He's going to be hitting me for quite a bit. Like I would be very low after a Pernicious Deed. And also Pernicious Deed, if I want to kill the Thopter Foundry or if I want to kill the Staff, which I would definitely want to kill the Staff, it's going to wipe my board too. So this is like a one-sided Wrath effect. It doesn't hit everything, but it won't hit the servo token, but it'll hit his constructs. So this is very important, and I have double force to make sure that it works. So I pass, keeping Dress Down up. Of course, I could cast it at any point. I'm not sure what he's going to go get here. I just have to accept that the time to cast this is when he attacks. He equips Shuko. Shuko, unlike Shadow Spirit stuff, only gives +1/+0. It doesn't give +1/+1. So this will still die if the Dress Down resolves. He swings in with just a massive amount of pressure. And what I could do, of course, is I could just block here, and I couldn't trade. If I kept Fatal Push in my hand, I could have pushed and then traded with the Murktide. And that wouldn't be bad because this, remember, I got 2 cards off this. It's like I can trade all day. Like he does not have that many Urza Sagas. I think he's playing 3 or maybe 4. Let's see how many Urza Sagas he's playing. So again, this is not the exact list that he's playing because I think he switched over to the Staff one. Unless he somehow, no, this is his old one. Interesting. This is like an Aether Vial build. So he's experimenting actively. Wait, no, I'm looking at the really old one. Let's take a look here and see if the most recent 5.0 is with Staff of the Storyteller. It's not. It's on the Stoneforge Mystic. But some people, when they play the Retrofitter, Staff of the Storyteller, they do play 4 Sagas because Saga's so strong with this. And your plan B is a lot stronger than the Caldera plan. But again, Bowmasters, right? Which I have drawn several Bowmasters in this matchup. Okay, so he's going to attack in, and I'm going to do the only rational thing, which is to slam my dress down on the table and hope that this kills everything. So he's orange chanting. Oh, just let that resolve. No big deal, right? He has to have a force, but he probably does have a force. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and force. I'm going to get my cards, but he's got a force too. So this wouldn't be the end of the world, but yeah, what I should have done is let this resolve, draw my cards, and then force a negation. That was a misplay because he forces my force. No big deal. I've still got force and negation for his orange chant. So, and I would have 2 more cards in my hand. I can't remember. I may not have shuffled. It may still be like fetch and fatal push. So he's going to draw a card here. It's going to trigger my Bowmaster. He doesn't see what he needs. Bowmaster ping probably takes out that, but he could activate and remove that. But yeah, I mean, the point is that even though I was slightly loose by not letting his force resolve before I cast force and negation, Bowmasters carried me through this tough matchup. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you know, it's not that hard of a matchup." When you're facing like a master at the deck, it is hard, in my opinion. Like I realize that I'm usually favored when I face him with whatever deck I'm playing, but he's such a tight player, and he does little tricks like this. You got to be prepared. All right, let's go to match 3. So this person, I think I won't bother Googling them just because, let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find them in here. Well, I'll just Google real quick so I can completely tell you what I thought they were on. 94S. So I thought, okay, they're on initiative. Turns out they're not on initiative. They're on mono red prison. But look at my hand and tell me if you would keep this. Leave a comment below and like and subscribe, right? Because I'm going to be doing a lot more of these. So would you keep this hand against the initiative? I think you absolutely do, because you can stop their first play, and then Witherbloom can potentially take out a Mox, can potentially take out a Chalice. This is an insane opening hand, and especially because I get to play on the play, right? So like I'm slamming this. I've got Days online, yeah. So that's what I do. I just play my fetch out, and unlicensed Hearse. I'm not going to stop this. I've got Witherbloom. Now you might think like, well, Witherbloom's going to get 2 of your fetches, and you're not going to be guaranteed to find a land off Witherbloom command, and that is true. It's not necessarily a 2-for-1. And in fact, he takes my Tarns, but I get lucky. I find a Underground Sea. Now, I have 19 lands in my deck out of 47, or it was before I milled these, it was 50. That's not bad odds. Actually, I had like, I think 18, 17, 16. Yeah, but like, it wasn't unlikely that I would hit it. It was probably like a 50-50. I'm not going to go do the stats right now because that may not be of interest to you. But I did want to get that off the table. So here's Fable. This is an easy days. You always counter Fable if you can. That's one of those cards that like I don't even think about countering. I'm just like, nope. Any point in the game, somebody casts a Fable, I'm going to try to counter it. Unless I'm like genuinely afraid of them pin or grindstoning me or something, I will almost always counter it. Got our Beanstalk engine online. Here they come with Rabble Master. I am going to force Rabble Master. I'm going to draw a card too. Great. Okay. Wasteland, constrict their mana, and I'm just going to Murktide here. I mean, it's like an incredibly oppressive series of plays, and then I drew Force of Will, and I know the game's basically over. Like, I'm trying to imagine a sequence of draws that, yeah, I'm going to force that too. And then I just need to swing in a couple times, and even if they get some sort of disruptive permanent, I'm in a really strong position. I just cut off their outs and, massacre them essentially. Yeah, they're dead on board. Game 2. This game is a little bit more interesting than the first one. First one, of course, I'm extremely unfavored, both pre-board and post-board. Let's take a look at my sideboard here. It'd be nice if it remembered how big this window was. Okay, so I board out all my tempo cards. Days is not good enough, in my opinion, against them. Not on the draw. You don't want to be like taking turns or taking time off. And then stifles come out. There's really not that much to stifle. I mean, you could stifle, like, they probably are playing Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Let's take a look at their list. You can stifle that. Yeah, Caves of Chaos Adventure. They're only playing 3 of those. What they're really winning with is Broadside, Rabble Master, and just locking you. They've got the full 4 Trinisphere, full 4 Blood Moon, right? And then let's see, in 2 more Blood Moon effects in the sideboard. So I brought in my Dismembers. You always want to bring those in because Magus of the Moon, like, you can sometimes kill it with a Dismember, even if you're opening, if they play it before you even get a chance to do anything, that can be problematic. And of course, I boarded my 3 Hydroblasts. Boarded these out. So these went 1 for 1 for Dismember. And then I think that's it. Pretty light touch. Oh, I brought in both Pernicious Deeds. Just going to take a sip real quick. My tea. Okay, so Dismember, great opening hand. Look, double Hydroblast. I'm not going to lie. I got some really lucky opening hands. I don't think I mulliganed very much at all this league. But I am on the draw, and they do have an extremely powerful opening. Simeon Spirit Guides are going down, and Magus. So normally that's game. I don't have any way of dealing with it, but I do have a way of dealing with it because I have 2 Dismembers in my sideboard just for this particular situation. So they are probably pretty happy. And I'm thinking like, oh, I could just dismember it. First, I did have to double check. I want to be 100% certain that this comes into play untapped when Magus is out. And like I couldn't find a definitive answer real quick in Googling, so I just tried it and it worked. And it was a huge relief. So worth noting if you're playing in paper. So here, they would normally be able to play another scary 3-drop, but I'm just going to let them hit me. And then I'm going to end a turn, Dismember. All right, and now Pernicious Deed. That is the bomb. You never fire that off. You never blow that up unless you're getting at least 2 permanents. I couldn't be happier to see this permanent. I'm going to go Lorien Cycle, and I'm going to have a 3rd land, and then I'm going to have my Hydroblast online. And if there's nothing to Hydroblast, I'm going to have Orcish Bowmasters there. I am disciplined, and I go ahead and grab the island here. I go ahead and decide to play Deed here instead of holding up Hydroblast because Deed, it doesn't matter what they play. Like, this is going to answer at least 2 permanents. I'm not going to blow it up until there's a 2nd permanent on the table, but I will potentially blow it up to keep my life total low. And here I go ahead and take this hit. I'm like, why not? It's 1 damage. Next turn I can blow it, right? I'm going to play another land. I have Lorien cycling up, and I can blow for 3 and basically stop them from being able to play anything scary and attack me, like if they have Broadside Bombardiers in hand or something like that. So I'll blow it up now. And yeah, they're going to be able to cast another thing, but it's another Trinisphere, which I'm totally fine with because I've already got my mana set up. I'm going to hopefully get up to 6 mana this game. So I get this back. This goes and gets Lorien revealed, so I can potentially draw a lot of cards. Not that I'm going to draw. I'm not going to get greedy and do that before I've used my 2 Hydroblasts. But the next 2 turns are basically playing Hydroblasts and to stop their permanents and playing more lands, so I can get closer to Lorien revealing. Lorien revealing, potentially ending the game. And they're out of threats. They've got 5 cards in hand, but they can't do anything. That is a great feeling. I wouldn't be surprised if they have like Caves of Chaos Adventure, 4-drops, stuff like that, or maybe redundant lock pieces because they are. Yeah, and I'm not sure. Like at this point, they probably do still want to play Blood Moon effects. All right, so I go ahead and play this out, and I'm just trying to get some land back and get up to 6 mana. Now, I can do that safely because I've got 3 mana to Hydroblast with Trinisphere out, and I can start attacking. They don't have any instant speed creatures in their deck. Their life total is getting very low thanks to this. And this, obviously, is going to be Hydroblast. I don't want to risk them throwing the Trinisphere, doing 5 damage, 7. That can get very scary very quickly. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why they play redundant Trinispheres is because they're playing 4 Broadside and they figure they can throw the redundant ones. Because a lot of these Moonstompy decks only play 1 because you never really want to draw a second one because they usually don't prioritize getting rid of it. And here we go, just a Hydroblast, and that's game. So 2-0 against Magus of the Moon decks, getting through their Blood Moon effect, turn one. I mean, and I think I played this very disciplined. I do think I got lucky with my opening hands. My top decks weren't bad either. It is winnable. I've won it a few times, but this is, in my opinion, probably the single toughest matchup that you can face as a Sultai Beans pilot. Especially if you're playing the version of the deck that doesn't play, and I didn't mean to open that. Especially if you're playing the version of the deck that doesn't play a basic swamp in the sideboard. Or some Sultai Beans decks actually play a basic swamp main deck. But I value my Dazes and my Murktides too much, as I already spoke at length about. This is a really strong hand. I don't know what they're on. We can Google them. Marco 88. Just go back here. So my thinking at this point is probably Omnitel. It's been a few months. But we can see that, like, this is basically, they have Eureka, which is not a good card in my opinion. I think it's a terrible card. I would never risk playing this. I would just play like Sneak Attack, which is a much better card in my opinion, much less problematic. But if you're already on like the 4, what do they play? Veil of Summer. It makes sense. Green, blue. I guess you want to have a second effect in case they like surgical. Your Show and Tell is a fun story. I was playing against Show and Tell. And I noticed that they did this trick where they intuition to get 3 Show and Tell. So they basically used intuition as like a demonic tutor for their Show and Tell. And so they did that game 1 and won. In game 2, I went ahead and boarded in surgical. And when they intuitioned, I just surgicaled all the all the Show and Tell, their soul win condition out of their deck. So yeah, I can understand the desire to diversify your enablers here with Eureka, but Eureka, I'm not convinced it's a good card. And man, my goodness, is it expensive. Legends card, never reprinted. It's probably on the reserve list. All right, so strong hand against that deck. And I think I do something here that I think is a little suspect, and I lead with Mystic Sanctuary because my thinking is, well, they're playing an island, like, but they could have potentially had like a Daze. I didn't think they had Daze because they didn't have Daze over here. But still, like, I think it was loose. Yeah, so I go ahead and force here. And I pitching force knowing that I may have to Daze if they have their own force. So that was a disciplined pitch. I could have just hoped that they didn't have disruption. They were just YOLOing it. But no, they did have protection. So here I'm able to Daze. I have 0 permanents on the table. They have an Ancient Tomb. I draw a Wasteland. I decide it's good to go ahead and waste them. Because like that represents basically 2 land drops that they have to make now to be able to Show and Tell again. And it sucks to not have any permanents on the table, but you know, what can I do? And they're right back up. So I grab the Hedge Maze. Hedge Maze, again, like in 90% of the situations, just keeps the top card. That's how it feels anyway. It may not be exactly 90%. But, I mean, I'm not going to let an Orcish Bowmasters go here. Even though I am trying to get to counter magic, Orcish Bowmasters can potentially end this game before they have the ability. And sure enough, they brainstorm without protection. And I'm able to live that Bowmaster dream, right? So I've got 5 power on the table. They go ahead and ponder again as well. And things are looking pretty rough, especially because I'm able to waste their green source, which keeps them farther away from Eureka-ing if they are playing Eureka. I don't think I actually saw Eureka in this match. And here they go, Brazen Borrowing. Again, temporary solution. I don't really care about the Orc army. It's just pressure. What I care about is pinging them and having this disruptive permanent on the table. So Murktide comes down and they brainstorm knowing that, you know, they're probably dead, just hoping to find something, but they don't. So yeah, clean win. Again, not happy about opening with Mystic Sanctuary. I think that was loose, just in case they did have Daze. Yeah, let's look at the sideboard. So what I do in this matchup, I think I keep all my. I took out 2 Fatal Pushes, and I think I only brought in Force of Negation, and looks like I brought in Carpet of Flowers. I think I literally just sideboarded those 2 cards. So I've still got all my tempo stuff in. Even though they have tons of basics in their deck, I'm just like, you know, what is going to... There's nothing really... Like, we have a dearth of resources in this deck. We've got so many dead cards in our deck. This is a strong hand. And again, I don't think I've mulliganed this entire... I may have mulliganed like once this entire league. My opening hands have been very generous to me, and I think a big part of that is because I played 19 lands. Okay, so carpet. I don't have to turn on carpet. I don't have to do anything about it. I've got this answer to carpet right here. But in trying to cast this carpet, because I'm not playing Bayou, I am going to turn on carpet if they force. So I'm looking at the prospect of giving them a turn. Also notice that I don't have a blue card to go with my force. So I decided to wait. So here is kind of how I've structured my hand. Like I can EOT Bowmasters and get a clock, and then I can attempt a Witherbloom, which they're probably going to counter one of those two spells. They cycle, they get an island. Importantly, tapping out a Veil, which I suspect they probably have. So I'm going to go ahead and Bowmasters while they can't Veil it. And then I'm going to Witherbloom when they can't Veil it. They are going to force here, which is as expected, and now we just have to clench. We have to hope that they don't have show and tell into like, I guess at this point it'd probably have to be a track. So they do play 2 Gristlebrand, but Gristlebrand's not very powerful when your opponent has Bowmasters out. Endurance. I'm so happy to see this card. I'm like, my goodness. If you want to talk about like low scare cards, like low impact cards, like putting my graveyard away, not a big deal. Like, and I'm able to do this again. And this time, because I did draw the blue card, I could force, but I get kind of greedy here because their deck list doesn't show any dazes, and I'm like, I'll just daze this. So that's got to be pretty devastating for them. They've lost their mana source, and I'm not going to attack into that endurance. Instead, I'm going to like look and let's see, do I actually put something in the graveyard for once? I do. It's a bummer to put Mystic Sanctuary in the graveyard, but yeah, I don't want to be drawing that when I already have 3 lands in my hand. So again, this is like a bull case for Hedge Maze. It did some work there. So I think at this point, even though I don't have a up the Beanstalk out, Murderous Cut does make sense just so I can continue to apply pressure, and I don't think Murderous Cut is likely to find other targets. Here we go. Again, respecting days, and also being able to keep Spell Pierce up in case I want to do that instead of force. And boom. Second Veil is countered. So that's how you beat Veil. You just make sure you don't cast any black spells until you have a blue spell up. And really, like, Veil is so overplayed. Like, in a combo deck like this, it does make sense to play it, but I don't play Veil in Soul Typings, and I don't think it's a good card in our deck. I think it's a kind of a lousy offensive card. It's mainly a defensive card, and if they have Scam turn 1, it's too late for your Veil. They're going to see your Veil. They're not even going to bother taking it. They're going to take your relevant cards, and then you're going to die with a Veil in your hand. Okay, got him at 9. Does he have it? I have the Hardcast Force because I've been playing land every turn. Murktide basically ends the game next turn. I do think it's worth playing. And I keep some of these cards in the graveyard intentionally. I don't need it to be really big. I just need to be able to have a lethal threat in case they're able to deal with my Bowmaster. They take a draw. And trophy. We got the screenshot of the trophy we got here. So 11 times 2, that's $22 worth of tickets, plus 150 play points. So it's close to like 3 leagues that I can play without having to bother my wife. So I'm pretty happy about that. Yeah. Again, let's show the deck again real quick. You'll notice it's literally the only deck I had. I did really badly the other day with Jeskai, or not with Jeskai, with Esper, Stoneblade, and I'm like, I'm just deleting all my other decks and I'll rebuild from scratch because I think I went like, I think I actually got the reverse trophy with Jeskai, or with Esper, Stoneblade. So I'm not high on Stoneblade right now. I'm not as high on Swords to Plowshares as I was before. Just didn't seem to really matter in a lot of the matchups where it's supposed to matter. I got just creamed by Rescaminator repeatedly, and Plow didn't save me, right? So Plow is supposed to save you. It's supposed to like make it so they don't have good targets in their graveyard, but it wasn't pulling weight. And Stoneforge Mystic, I always just wish that I had more blue in my deck and less less of the white. So this is basically like a 2-color deck that has up the Beanstalk, and that's why we use Hedge Maze as our surveil land, because we're almost never going to need to use green mana turn 1 unless we have Carpet, right? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to keep publishing Sultai Beans. I love this deck. I love the feel of it. I might kick out Force of Despair again. Like, that's the only sideboard card that's been suspect recently. Everything else, if you want to just go jam some leagues with Sultai Beans, I think this is a pretty good, pretty optimized list. And this is very similar. I looked at all the, here, I'll show you how I do this real quick. So you just go to MTG top 8, and then you click Legacy. Then you can go to Sultai Beans, which is not on the Ascent. Control decks in general are not heavily played right now. You can see Bug Control is very much on the Descent. But you can like do this, and you can actually filter it if you want. You say major events last 4 months. You can see that like most of these were, a few months ago, but you can compare decks and you can see they're all mostly running 18 to 20 lands. And you can see that their mana base, like, I'm not the only person that doesn't play Bayou, but most people are playing Bayou. Leovold, again, for reasons I said in my last video, I don't think he's a good card right now, and I don't know why people are playing him. I mean, he feels great when he's great, but if he's not great, he's being reanimated by your opponent and locking you out of the game, or he's just being, pyroblasted or something like that, and you're out 3 mana. Like, at least with Murktide, you're hopefully cantripping and stuff. But you can see, like, this is a very optimized list. If you look at these numbers, like, not very many of them are fractional. Everybody's playing an island. And we can look at like the more recent ones that are not just these big events. Let's see, like, last 2 months. Keep in mind, this is going to include a lot of like F&M type events and stuff. But we can come in here and take a look, and we can see that almost everybody's on 19. Almost everybody's playing the Leovold in addition to Murktide. I did experiment with playing Brazen Borrower. Again, I don't think Brazen Borrower is right because it doesn't feed your Murktide, and a lot of times it's just not that consequential. It does die to a Bowmaster Ping. It's great against like the Depths matchup, but it's not great everywhere else. You can also see that a lot of people here more recently have drifted away from including Bayou in favor of just having a lot of islands in their deck, like Island Dualians. So yeah, I feel like my deck is very representative of what people are doing right now. Let's see, days. I realize this is probably very small. If you're like looking at your phone, you may not even be able to see it. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So Clean to Dust, I think, is a trap because you need your graveyard already for the Murderous Cut and for the Murktides. I don't like Force of Negation main deck anymore. I can see how it was good before. I like having a Spell Pierce instead. I think 3 Lorien Revealed is perfectly reasonable. I can understand people only playing 2, but I like having the extra mana. I like having the extra Murktide food. And then I don't think Nala Spellbomb is necessary anymore. Some people are playing that for the matchup that a lot of people are really scared of, which is Rescam. I have a terrible track record against Rescam, but it's much better with Sultai Beans than it was with Jeskai or with Esper Stoneblade. And then let's see if there's like Sauron's Ransom. I don't really like. I feel like it's like a crappy version of Lorien Revealed. So I would play a 3rd Lorien Revealed in place of Sauron's Ransom. Shieldred Edict. Some people were like putting like I Shot the Sheriff, which is a better version of like Go for the Throat, which is a better version of Doomblade. Like there are lots of other removal spells, but Shieldred's Edict is your only answer to a resolved Merit Lage token, which comes up a lot. I lost to lands yesterday because they like turbo Merit Laged and then they attached the Lava Spur Boots and killed me like on turn 3. It was like the most quick match I've ever played with lands, I think. And you can see that Stifle, some people are on 3, some people are on 0. I think the right number is 2 personally. I don't like Thoughtseize in the deck. I can see it like keeping them guessing and stuff, and that was the original Sultai Beans was like you got 1 Thoughtseize, you got 1 Spell Pierce, you got 2 dazes. I think it's better to just play 3 days and 0 Thoughtseize and 1 extra Stifle. So you got 3 Stifle. And then everything else. Witherbloom Command, I don't like. I tried playing 3 because it's such a good card when it's good, but you really don't want those clogging up your hand. I think 2 is the right number. In terms of sideboard, No reason to ever play Blue Elemental Blast. In my opinion, it clashes with your Murktide. You can't always cast it. You can always cast Hydroblast. Carpet, I still think is good as a one of. I don't like Collect Roof. It's not necessary. And then I do think feel very strongly 2 Dismembers. Let's see if there are any other cards in here that are surprising. Almost everybody's playing a Force of Vigor. Even with the low green count, Force of Vigor is just so good when it's good. Golgari Charm seems cute. Grafdigger's Cage, I think, is a very reasonable card to put in your deck. It doesn't really conflict with anything you're doing other than does it conflict with anything we're doing? I don't think it does, but it does stop. It does die to Pernicious Deed. Not that you'd necessarily be boarding this in. Well, you probably would be if you're playing against a Green Sun Zenith deck. You don't want to blow up your. So I think now Spellbomb is better, frankly, because you can always cash it out. You can't cash out Grafdigger's Cage. Once it hits the table, it either does something or it doesn't. And I wouldn't feel comfortable dedicating an entire card in my deck post board to just stopping 4 reanimates in a scam player's hand. But because now Spellbomb is more flexible, that's why I prefer that. Null Rod, again, great card, but not really necessary in your deck with like already a really good matchup against combo decks. And then Powder Keg's another good card, but I do think that the fact that Dress Down is blue and pitches to force and it cantrips, I think is better overall. And you should be playing 2 Deed. I think people that aren't playing 2 Deed are making a mistake. Deed is the reason why Sultai is so strong right now, or green-black in general is so strong right now. It just completely destroys. Like the other day against lands, I had a Deed that like 5 for 1, right? And I didn't even have to pay any mana. I just played the Deed and then I executed. And you could say, oh, well, Pest Control does that too, right? Pest Control wouldn't have hit the lands. Like they had an Urza Saga out. It doesn't hit artifact lands. Pernicious Deed is so much better, in my opinion. Okay, and then 1 Surgical is pretty standard, and then 1 Veil of Summer. Again, I've talked about how I don't think Veil of Summer is a good card in our deck. I think it's great in Storm decks. It's great in Omnitel, like we saw, where he's trying to protect his one spell that has to resolve. I've talked quite a bit, a lot longer than I expected to, or plan to, but I like to share like basically every thought that enters my mind because I'm actively like learning, and teaching is the best way to further your own understanding of something and synthesize new thoughts based on the gestalt of different ideas you've been exposed to, listening to podcasts, watching other people play leagues on YouTube and playing them yourself, right? Like, so I hope you don't mind me being a little bit verbose. I'm having a blast. I'm going to take this to the 1K this weekend. We'll see how I do. But I feel like with all the preparation I've been doing on MTGO, I'm playing better than I've ever played. And I think I only made a few very minor sequencing errors and things like that. I don't think I made any punts. I feel great about that league I played today. Did I get lucky in some places? Absolutely. And, I've played leagues with Sultai Beans where I think the worst I've ever done is I only won 1 match out of 5. I think that happened 1 time. Almost every other match, though, has been like either a 2-3 or a 3-2 or a lot of 4-1s and stuff. But this is my second trophy to get with Sultai Beans, and I love the deck, and I think it's well positioned right now. Until next time, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.